there's this conversation around the feminization of men today. And it's a real thing. And it's not just happening in men, it's happening in women too, in a lot of senses. But we'll talk about men first. So with men, you have to understand that they're not only getting in all processed foods, because all processed foods are going to have some form of soybean oil. Even if you're eating meat, they will add like some form of soybean meat in there, etc. Yeah, you see what I'm saying? So you're getting that in the diet, but also there's a lot of these what are called endocrine disruptors, which are like fake estrogen. I work with a lot of women. You have a lot of women who have like 10, 13-day periods. And nobody talks about the implications of where that leads the man.
What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Rico Hundo, and we back at it at 8 at the table. And I want to say thank you for tapping in. Also, thank you for those that have been liking, supporting, and subscribing to our channel. And if you purchase some merch, you get a special thank you from your boy. Now, listen, there's a lot of guys out here who are struggling to get what they want, and it could be because of your physical appearance. You might not just be in that shape that you think that you really are. I got the perfect guy that's going to talk about it. It's my homeboy right here called Dr. Holistic. And he keeping me on my toes. You know what I'm saying? He sent me some fruit from the Miami, from I Heart Fruit box, right?
Indeed.
Located in Miami.
Yes, indeed.
Listen, man, you go ahead and do the introduction because I already know who you are. You gotta know who you are.
Yeah, so background is I'm a pharmacist turned herbalist. I got interested in healthcare because all my grandparents died by the time I was in 10th grade.
Damn.
And when my grandmother died, it just inspired me to say, all right, I got to take care of my family. I got to take care of myself. And graduate, start working in the hospital as a clinical pharmacist. But then I remember I got diagnosed with high blood pressure when I was 16.
Damn,
and so I was living with high blood pressure for like a decade.
Wow.
And get in the hospital, start eating hospital food, start gaining hospital weight. And before I know it, I'm like 245, 250. And I got sleep apnea and I got high blood pressure. And so that whole journey of wanting to heal people, I needed to heal myself first. And so I essentially went on this journey to heal myself, ended up out of desperation trying a plant-based lifestyle, lost 50 pounds.
Wow.
And resolved and healed the sleep apnea and the high blood pressure. And that was the point where it was like, I had to throw everything I learned away,
Wow.
4 degrees, a ton of clinical work and experience, and now I'm going back to nature. So that's how I ended up in this seat that we're at now.
Yeah, I wish Erin was here to hear that because she's so, and like my thing is like, there's so much that you can learn, right, through your experiences and knowledge that's out there that is not taught in a book.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? And too many people, I feel, live and die by it, which really closes your mind to really being able to push your boundaries. And I think that's dope. You've went one route, then you went the other route, and you've really found a balance, and now you're out here. You educating me. I know you're educating a lot of other people, so we definitely appreciate you.
Yeah.
We need you to educate these fellas.
Yeah, indeed.
And women.
And women, yeah, overall everybody,
Yeah.
Because some of these women definitely could use some diet tips too.
Yeah.
Right?
and it ain't even just about diet. It's about this whole being, because this whole being requires so much.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is, like, really much of it is all natural. It's just habits. It's mentality. But we've gone so far away from that natural and innate mentality that we used to have that we're just living a life that essentially ends in destruction of our body. So, it's just not diet, bro. It's just not exercise. It's everything. And so, yeah, I'm hoping today we'll get into some conversation. Well, it'll not only be about, how do you eat healthier, but what does that mean when you eat healthier? What does that give you? What is the consequence of that?
Like, so let's say I'm a guy and maybe I'm not overweight. So here's one of my pet peeves: body shapes
Okay.
on men. I hate a skinny fat dude because it don't make sense to me.
Okay, I get what you mean.
You're like, how you skinny and fat?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I think they need the most help, right? Because like you're stuck in no man's land.
Yeah, yeah.
What I've typically seen, and this is not all the time, but you know, they typically have poor diets or they're really heavy drinkers.
Yep.
So like drinking definitely does affect the body in a different type of way, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, the first part is always going to be nutrition,
Mhm.
because and the reason why that's so important is, but the skinny fat dude you're talking about, the skinny legs, and then the big abdomen that's
yeah, and
lapping
then
over his
the
belt.
little arms,
Yes, yes, and
bird chest.
yeah. So what that is an indication of is a really horrible diet, and so the legs are telling you what you should look like, right or wrong.
Wait, time out. Is it my legs is lying to
I
me?
was just saying the legs usually tell the truth.
Okay.
But what's happening is you're eating food that is so unhealthy and so disagreeable with your body, it can't be processed out. So the food is literally going into the body and just stopping here. You see what I'm
There.
saying? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And the implications of that is what they don't understand. Like that's diabetes, okay? That's also impotence and erectile dysfunction.
What's impotence? You had to.
Well, when you can't get it up.
Oh,
I mean,
okay,
because you
okay.
got to think, you got this belly that is literally sitting on top of your reproductive organs. Okay?
Got it.
You probably got 10 to 25 pounds of undigested food rotting and fermenting in your gut, leaking out onto those reproductive organs. So it makes sense why a lot of men don't have that natural blood flow in that area,
Yeah.
because that's exactly what a medication like Viagra does. The only thing it does is increase blood flow to the area.
That's it.
That's it.
It's like
It's a lack of blood flow. So that's also an indication that you're going to have issues with your heart as well. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
If you don't have proper blood flow, you're going to have heart issues.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So it's the food that is the issue, but it's also the alcohol too. Because alcohol goes directly into the bloodstream and goes directly to the liver. And the more you drink it, it is a toxin. That's why they say when you get drunk, you are intoxicated. You see what I'm saying? So you're damaging your liver. And then even if, let's say you're not a hard liquor drinker, you drink beer. Well, beer has a lot of estrogen in it, the hops.
that's why Alan's been more so on the women's side lately. Okay, I get it. It makes sense.
But you see what I'm saying? And so it's really important for men to know, like a lot of the like paradigms and things that we think about when we think about what it means to be manly, like the way that we're eating, like it's making us very unmanly.
First of all, I agree. Hold on. So beer has estrogen in it.
Yes, the
Or it
plant
produces?
the plant that it comes from,
Uh-huh.
it produces estrogen in the body. Yeah.
So
But aren't there a lot of other foods that also have like estrogen, like soy and things that people consume all the time?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that people
Absolutely.
aren't even aware of.
And
Not
soy
sure.
soy is in virtually all processed foods. now.
Right, that's what I was gonna
Yeah,
say.
yeah, yeah. So, I mean, when you start to think about it, there's this conversation around the feminization of men today,
yeah.
and it's a real thing. And it's not just happening in men; it's happening in women too, in a lot of senses. But we'll talk about men first. So, with men, you have to understand that they're not only getting in all processed foods, because all processed foods are going to have some form of soybean oil, some form of, even if you're eating meat, they will add like some form of soybean meat in there, et cetera, et cetera.
Toxins.
Yeah, you see what I'm saying? So you're getting that in the diet, but also there's a lot of these what are called endocrine disruptors, which are like fake estrogens and plastic bottles and plastic wrappings on most of the food is sold in plastics.
Yeah.
Most of the products that we use, they have things that are called phthalates, parabens, etc. All these things turn into fake estrogen in the body. You see what I'm saying? And what that does is now you got a man who has this estrogen dominating in the body.
Yeah.
And when that happens is you start to see the effects of it, because most people don't understand. Hormones tell us what, not only our bodies what to do, but they can tell it what to look like, feel like. So ultimately, when you see a man who has issues with low testosterone, right? You're gonna start to see balding, erectile dysfunction. You're gonna start to see him lose muscle mass,
So
inability to build muscle too.
wow, okay, wait, damn, this is crazy. I'm not gonna lie, this is mind blowing.
Yeah.
So balding is a sign of lower testosterone levels.
Yeah, it could be a sign of low testosterone. 100%.
Wow.
Now, heredity sometimes plays a part,
Yeah.
but now we're seeing so many men with issues with, losing their hair. And not just hair on their head, like body hair too. You see what I'm saying? So, yeah.
Damn, so I ain't gonna lie. Just being honest with you. I just thought it was stress. But like one day I woke up, like last 2 years, or maybe 2 years ago, and I lost all the hair on my calves.
Yeah.
I was like, damn, what's going on? Like, but everybody's like, oh, you're getting 30. You're touching 30. You're about to be 30. You're getting old. I'm like, nah, bro, this is weird.
Yeah.
I think I need a soy-free diet.
Yeah. And the other thing that's really important, and I brought this up before, but since the 1980s, the testosterone in men has been decreasing at a rate of 1% every year. So you think about that, at least
20-something percent
at
right
least
now.
40%, bro, since 1980.
Oh, wow.
So like in 1980, the average testosterone was 500. In the 1990s, it was 425. In the early 2000s, it was like 325. Now we're seeing. I literally heard this yesterday. Somebody was, telling me about somebody that their son had a testosterone at 85. And it's really important to understand that that's not only going to change. That's going to change how you look too, bro. Like gynecomastia is the development of man boobs.
Yep.
And even then, in science,
I don't think I got it, but
Is that really U.S.
Huh?
statistics?
what's that?
Is that really like more so U.S. statistics? Because like in Europe, the guidelines are so much more strict in what
Yes,
people
yes,
ingest.
because for the vast majority, American food is banned in Europe.
yeah.
Right.
So, for instance, like you get certain food companies here, if they decide to sell their food in Europe, they have to change the ingredients.
Right.
So, if you look at that same product in Europe versus here, the ingredients are going to be totally different. That's why you have a Mexican Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
The ingredients, they won't allow high fructose corn syrup in their country.
Right.
So yeah, it's totally different. And so as a result, like a lot of men are not only losing their manhood, but they're also losing their ability to reproduce too. Because infertility is big now, because that's another common effect of low testosterone, low sperm count. You see what I'm saying? So like it's a real big issue. And even in science, because pesticides are another issue, because if you're eating processed food, you're eating pesticides.
Mm-hmm.
And the second most prevalent pesticide is atrazine. Okay. Now you probably heard the study where, this frog was converted into a,
tadpoles in California.
what comes out in the means is the frog was made to be gay. No, the male frog was converted into a female frog.
Yeah, he had developed women. He had both reproductive organs, the women and
The
male.
men parts were disappearing.
Yep.
Okay. And this is atrazine.
And his personality was changing from being the one that was in front to be the one that was in the back.
Yeah. And that's the second most common pesticide in the US, which is atrazine, which is banned in Europe.
And in that study, they said that 3 times the amount that it would take to affect a human, they are actually using 3 times that amount of pesticides on our agriculture, which actually hosts 80% of the United States.
Yep. And so they use 200 nanograms per deciliter to convert this frog into a female frog. What would you guess the limit is in America's drinking water? Just guess. So 200. What would you guess?
1,000.
3,000. That's the limit that they're cool with being in American drinking water.
So wait, so 200. So it's about what, 60 times? No, 6 times.
Yeah, so just imagine that, bro. Like that's allowed in the drinking water.
Like drinking water, as in what, like bottled water or
the water that you get that comes out of your tap.
Mm. You should cook with, basically.
Yes.
Can now, and my question is too: if you're washing your body with, let's say you don't consume it, but you
Yeah.
wash your body, it still can
Yes.
get into your.
Goes into
Yes.
your pores.
Yes. You got to understand, like, even when patients would come in the hospital, and let's say they had an issue where they couldn't swallow anything, we would put like a fentanyl patch on them to help them get rid of the pain. So whatever you put on their skin, your body is absorbing it.
Wow.
So if it's having that impact on men,
Yeah.
what's happening with women?
Same thing with women. So with women, the issue becomes the estrogen dominance in the body. And when you have estrogen dominance or high levels of estrogen in the body, the issue you're going to have is breast cancer,
Right.
uterine cancer. You're also going to have fibroids, PCOS, okay? You're also going to have a lot of issues around having a very painful menses.
Menstrual cycle, yeah.
You're going to have a longer menstrual cycle, which most women are having. And this is really key. You're going to start to see young girls have earlier menses. So now we're seeing young girls who are having a menses at 9.
Right.
What?
Whereas if you go back to like the 1800s,
14.
it was like 14, 16, they would have their first period.
9 years old.
Yes. And whenever the earlier your menses is, it increases your risk for breast cancer. It increases your risk for all reproductive cancers for women. Okay. And the other thing that's really key and really important about this is that the more estrogen you have in your body, it causes the woman to become androgenized. And what that means is it will make her more masculine. So just think about that for a second. We're seeing men become more feminine, okay? Seeing women become more masculine, okay? And all of this ties back to food.
You know, I say stuff like this all the time for a long time. People be like, "Oh, you're a conspiracist." I'm like, "No, I'm not." It just makes sense that like when you just look at everything, right? Usually, whenever you see a new trending diet,
Yeah.
we're seeing an influx in some new type of behavior.
Yep.
And that's one thing that I've picked up. And so that's how like I got into the studies of the frog thing because
Yeah,
I
I
was
got
trying
you.
to figure out like what's going on because the percentile of homosexuality, obviously there were different variables, but
Yeah.
the percentile of homosexuality was like 1 to 2% in the 90s.
Yeah.
And now we're at 1 in 4. So you can't tell me that there was 24% of people in the closet.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense. The numerics don't add up. So then I started looking for possible ways and I'm like, well, we had the whole frog thing where, you know, that was based on our agriculture.
Right.
Then we have trending diets such as vegan and vegetarian diets. And it's like, well, now you're pumping all of this.
Yeah.
Wow, man.
And then when you start to think, so like I want to go back to like the whole hormone conversation because they're both natural hormones in our body and they tell us what to look like, what to develop in terms of our reproductive organs, like the deepness of our voice, the sweetness of our voice. It tells us all those things. So when you switch the hormones, you're switching the person. So it makes sense why so many children even are having what I would refer to as body dysmorphia.
Right.
And body dysmorphia is essentially, you know, when you have an issue with your body parts. You understand?
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is you will clinically see people who believe that they should not have an arm.
Wait.
And there's been cases where people have body dysmorphia where they literally go get amputated just to solve that sort of urge because they have that body dysmorphia.
Wait.
So imagine if you can have a person with that condition and then you switch their hormones around like such, it makes sense why so many, you know, children are now having issues with, you know, what their identity is. I mean, you add that on top of all the conversation that is in social media, it makes sense why so many people are confused.
Yo, so somebody can really convince themselves that they shouldn't have had an arm?
Yeah. And there's cases where literal physicians will assist them in the process and they go
Of
through
getting rid of their arm?
and get an amputation. Yes.
Which is insane.
Yes.
And their license should
Yep.
be revoked.
Why?
Because you can't reconcile it. You know, like people don't understand how perception is like vital in how you see yourself in the
Yeah.
outside world. So if you really, truly, your perception that it doesn't belong there, everybody can say, no, 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 it's fine. If you can't reconcile it in your mind, then it doesn't make sense.
Right.
The fact
Yeah.
that you find somebody to do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what can we really do about this in terms of we live here in the United States, right? We consume the food, we drink the water. Like, what can we do to reduce our risk?
Yeah. Well, let me start with this. Like, so I worked for the FDA for a little while as a graduate student, and part of that whole like excitement to be able to do that was to learn more about the Food and Drug Administration because they are responsible for what foods that we put out there in the world, what drugs are going out there in the world. And I'll tell you that leaving there, it was very disappointing for me because there was a program that I was a part of, and that program was to take calls from people and say, "Hey, this drug abused you, or this side effect was caused by this drug," but it was nothing being done about it. Okay. And the reason why I'm telling you that story is because, like, it's so important for us to understand how important we have to empower ourselves and not wait for governmental agencies, our doctors, or anybody to tell us what we need to do next. Because the direction that we're heading into, it is not a good direction.
Mhm.
And so, after leaving the hospital, I moved to Japan for like 4 years. And the reason why I moved there was because they had the largest population of people who are called centenarians, people who live to 100. Now, this is despite the fact that the island is probably, I don't know, about 50 miles long and about, 20 miles wide with a population of less than a million. And they have the largest population of people who live to 100, okay, for the last couple of decades. So I moved there and working in the hospital, but also doing research on these people who live in a village called Ogami and watching them over the course of 4 years and having conversations with them, it made sense why they were able to live that long. And it reminded me of my great grandmother, not my grandmother who died at 67. My great grandmother lived to 105. Okay. Her daughter died at 67.
Mhm.
And I remember when my grandmother died, her mother, my great grandmother, walking into the funeral, and I'm thinking to myself, like, that doesn't make sense.
Right.
Why didn't she live to 105? And my grandmother literally walked in, was transparent. I mean, like, so when I moved to Okinawa, Japan, and I'm studying these people who are 100, 102, 97, who are riding bikes, walking up hills, gardening, the first thing I thought about was my great grandmother. And I'm noticing that 97% of their diet is plant based, real food. They exercise. They have community where they, like support each other, are responsible to each other. They drink herbal teas. They eat superfoods. And so at that point, it was like, oh, it's medicine isn't the way.
Light bulb came.
Light bulb came because it was like, my undergraduate degrees are in exercise physiology and chemistry, and then I have a doctorate of pharmacy. So I know chemistry.
Mhm.
But the thing I figured out was I was on the wrong side of chemistry. I was on the inorganic
Yeah.
side of the man-made side of
Yep.
chemistry. I wasn't on the biochemistry side of like the living side of chemistry, which is food, herbs, and etc.
Mhm.
And so it was that point. It was like, all right, so, and I didn't even know if I wanted to come back to the States because that was
Yeah, yeah.
that was when Trump was in office. And
Yeah.
like every day I'm looking on the TV, like out of the country, and I'm seeing like another black person get shot and nothing being done. So I'm
Wow.
like not even sure I want to come back. But now I feel loaded with all this new information, and I'm healed.
There's a sense of
There's
responsibility.
such a sense of response, and I miss black women. Like, oh my God, I miss black
He said,
women.
"Oh my
I
God."
miss black women and so I come back.
Japan wasn't cutting
Shout
it.
out to black women. Different. But I come back, write a book called Vegucation Over Medication. And honestly, I did not expect for it to do well. Because like when I left and I was trying to preach this message to people, I would do an event for a room of 504 people would show up.
Mm.
And so when I come back, I'm like, I don't know how this book gonna do, but I'm gonna write the book. And I remember I started off with a book signing, and it sold out. And then I put the book on Amazon, and it became a bestseller. And that was the point I was like, there's been a shift.
Right.
I was just early. And
Mhm.
so the answer to your question is that how our solution is the solution that has always been there. Like the FDA was invented in 1906. So that's when drugs came into play. But you can go as far back as 10,000 years and you'll see that there's human history using herbs
Oh
and
yeah.
food as medicine.
Right.
So there's over 10,000 years of clinical data. There's over 10,000 years of observational and anecdotal data that shows us that this works. And so the answer is you have to reconnect and get back to nature because most of the food that we're seeing in the grocery stores is not real food.
Yeah.
80 to 90% of the grocery store is products, it's not food. It's only that produce section, which is one of the smallest sections of the
Yeah.
store that is actually real food that our bodies can recognize, it can utilize, it can absorb, it can break down, and then eliminate. And most of the food that people are buying are in box bag, cans, jars with thickening agents, emulsifiers, preservatives, things that you have no idea not only how to pronounce,
Right.
but you don't even know what it is. And being a chemist, I understand exactly what it is, so I understand why people are so sick.
I owe myself a sincere apology, Rico. Listen, bro, I've not treated you the best. I've consumed some real crazy stuff. Yeah. So
I love that right there, bro, because I think that's where everybody has to start. It has to start from the self-care, self-love perspective where you start to have this inner conversation with yourself about what you've been doing to you and not what they've been putting in the grocery stores and not what your doctor did. Like you have to start with yourself because man, when I tell you like your mentality is what's going to heal you, it doesn't matter if it's with a physical element, past trauma, a relationship, it's always here that's gonna heal you first.
word.
Yeah.
So I have a question. Now we're gonna get into the fruit because, by the way, I'm gonna say I got the fruit box and I was like, "Yo, this is dope." And I already told you when I first ran into you how I've been already on
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
And so my question was, have you had any experiences where you use herbs, fruits, or any type of nature to heal anybody, and what might that story be? So now that you've, I don't want to say transition, I'm gonna say adopted another form of, healing and curing people with, our nature and natural resources.
Yeah.
What are some cases that you have had?
Yeah, yeah. Man, so I do like a group detox like 3 to 4 times a year.
Okay.
And so like one of my primary products is my herbal detox. I do a full body detox. And I just simply took the knowledge I had from like being a pharmacist to the knowledge I now have as being a master herbalist and put them together. Right. And created this group detox where we had like 250, 300 people in there. And I get to see the transformation over the course of 30 days. And the beautiful thing is you get to see what happens when somebody's body is clean because that's the most important thing. Like our bodies are literally designed to heal themselves. It's a self-healing mechanism. But because it's so intoxicated, because it's so saturated, and especially those organs that are there to actually heal and repair you, it can't do it.
Mhm.
And so we've had people who had a lady in my group. She convinced the mom to do it, and while you're doing the detox, you're eating completely plant based. She had been a type 1 diabetic for over a decade. Our doctor not only took her off of the insulin, but he took her off all the high blood pressure medication.
Damn.
And she was at a point where she couldn't even speak anymore. So like she couldn't even talk with her mom because her blood sugars were so high. And she was able to speak. And I spoke here in New York last year, and her and her mom showed up at the event. And so those are the type of like things I see a lot of times is that I've seen women who had issues with PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome, resolve those conditions, which could be really horrible for a woman. A lot of women who have long menstrual cycles, like 8 and 10 day menstrual cycles, cut that down to 3 or 4 days, and also reduce all the pain. Like some of them don't even know their period is coming because the indications that the period was coming was the pain and the back pain and things of that. And so have seen that. And so just have seen like a variety of things like that.
So, for the fellas out there who have, girls who are not on, plan, I said plan B. Wow. Birth control. Birth control.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that can slow this? Because back in high school, we used to have a thing. We're like, yo, we don't date weakers.
What is that, bro?
That a weaker was a girl who had their period for a week. It was a week
Ah.
too long. So like, her period was 3 or 4 or 5 days. It's like, this is perfect because we don't have to wait a whole week to have sex.
Gotcha.
You know what I'm saying? So what are some of the things that, women could use and utilize to kind of bring that 7 to 10 day cycle down to 3 or 4?
Well, like I said, my full body detox. And that's an important conversation that a lot of people don't have because, I mean, I work with a lot of women. You have a lot of women who have like 10, 13-day periods. And nobody talks about the implications of where that leaves the man. Like, nobody talks about, like, how much
Yeah.
discipline you're asking him to be. Nobody talks about, like, and women, I found, don't communicate that with each other either. Like,
Really?
they don't talk about their fibroids or their hysterectomy or their long periods. I mean, I've done groups where we're focusing on fibroids or something like that, and a lot of women are wowed by it. And I don't have those reproductive organs, but when I start to hear them have a conversation, they're having these conversations for the first time
Mm.
because when you have that issue for a lot of women, a lot of the value is attached to their ability to have sex, to reproduce, etc. And so I always tell women, you got to get rid of all of those foods that are causing the estrogen to go up, all the plastics, even sunscreen. Sunscreen has a compound in it called oxybenzone. And that oxybenzone is an endocrine disruptor that raises your insulin. Um, I talked about a lot of hair care and cosmetic products have phthalates and parabens in them. It may be methylparaben, it may be butylparaben, propylparaben, but these are compounds that increase estrogen. You increase estrogen, you're going to have a painful period, you're going to have a long period, and you're going to eventually have issues, possibly with fibroids as well. And so, getting rid of those, exercising, and a big issue is 75% of the American population is either overweight or obese, and it's even worse in the African American women population.
Wow.
And with that being said, the reason why it's so important, and this isn't like body shaming, but it's important to know that fat is not like this benign tissue. Fat is a living tissue. And one of the things that fat does is it creates an enzyme called aromatase. Aromatase produces more insulin in the body. I mean, not more insulin, but more estrogen in the body. And the more estrogen goes up, you're going to have issues with your period. It also steals away your vitamin D, which is also an issue in our community as well.
So you mean to tell me, and that makes sense because I see a lot of overweight men that act like women, and it's because of their fat is producing more estrogen.
Yeah, it does. It's true. Yeah, so fat creates the enzyme aromatase, and the aromatase will aromatize your testosterone it will convert your testosterone into estrogen.
Holy, I'm about to be on it. I mean, so this is great, by the way. Like, I know you see me staring. It's like because I'm really absorbing, and I want to say I definitely appreciate. I like good information. This is
Good.
great information.
Good.
So now my other question that I had was, well, I'm not gonna lie, I did forget it, but we're just gonna rock off because I got
Still
so many.
thinking about the answer.
I was damn because it was in the middle of it.
No, I just like what are the barriers that like let's talk like in terms of being realistic with the community,
Yeah.
right? Whenever we talk about access to organic foods and
Yeah.
and things that people need to do, but what are barriers that we can realistically overcome, right?
hmm
So that people can access actual really good food
Yeah.
and reduce the toxics that they're taking in.
Gotcha. Yeah, there's huge barriers, especially in our community, the Black and Brown community, and one of those is access to healthy food.
Right.
But what I will tell you is that there's always a light in the darkness. Every neighborhood I've gone into, even like Brooklyn, like I lived in Bed-Stuy for a while. You go to Brooklyn, there are fruit markets that you can go to and get nice fruit. So there's especially today, not after the whole what the health explosion, and
Are
that's
they
a
good fruit, right?
But how do you
that,
know what's the good? Like I've seen like things on Instagram like, hey, like barcode checking if
yeah,
they
yeah,
have
yeah.
like
So
certain
one of the things is with fruit, it doesn't have a label, but it has a PLU code. Okay,
POU
PLU. Okay,
PLU.
and that's an identifier. It tells you if it's, let's say, for instance, if it's a 3 or 4, then it's most likely grown conventional, which means that it's probably been sprayed and possibly genetically modified. If it's 6, it's right in the middle. It could be either one. And it,
Halfway organic,
yeah,
halfway not.
yeah. And then if it's 9, it means it's organic. Okay, so that's one identifier that you can go by. Go by those numbers. The other thing I'll tell you is, as you mentioned before, and I'm sure we're going to get into, is that now, that's one of the reasons I bought a farm, was to be able to give people the opportunity to get tropical fruit from a tropical environment. And so I have a 9-acre farm in Miami, and we grow nothing but tropical seeded seasonal fruit. So you can get soursop, you can get, mamey, you can get sugar apple, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Cacao. What's it called? Cacao.
Cacao.
Cacao,
Cacao.
cacao. And so that's one thing that you can do to cross the barriers is support a black business like myself. You can go to
What's the name of the business?
iHeartFruitbox.com.
Yeah.
So that's one way. The other thing I'll say, and this is really important in our community, black and brown, Latino, is that when you see a neighborhood grocery store not providing what you want, tell them I'm not going to support you with my money if you don't get this in here. And you need to come together to do that, because here's the thing: they can buy what they want to buy, but if you don't buy it, it doesn't matter.
True.
Hmm.
And so we literally have to unite and get them to start bringing this healthy food in the community as well. And we need to do that in so many areas, but that's one way we could do it. The other thing that I find very important is people just need to learn how to make food for themselves. And a lot of people have just lost that art of making food for yourself. But I always tell people, when you make food, like for me, it's like an act of self love. Like when you chop it up and when you cook it up, like it's an act of self love. You feel like, damn, I made this for me. You're taking pictures, you're sharing it on the gram, you're sharing it on you. Like it's just an act of self, and you feel good about it. And I think that's one of the things that we have to do. We have to get back to making our own food so we can feel more happy about doing something healthy for ourselves, because we just don't do it enough.
A question that I have is how connected is a healthy diet to a healthy relationship?
Super connected, because when you start to think about, I'll give you a few instances.
Oh
All
man.
right. So, one of the top 2 issues in a relationship is finances.
Hmm.
Okay. And then sex. Okay. So let's start with finances. One of the things that you're always hearing about a lot of men is they're not motivated, they're not assertive, they don't set goals, et cetera, et cetera. When you have low testosterone, it literally lowers your assertiveness and lowers your motivation. So you don't have the motivation to go to the gym. You don't have the motivation to say, I want to do this extra work to move up in the company or start this business. So that's one aspect of it. But even sex drive, it even affects that too. And not just with men, but with women too. So you'll have a man. There's a lot of cases where it's not the guys that is the problem,
That's the
but the
girl.
woman will mask it as, I just don't want to have sex, but she doesn't even have the libido or drive to have sex because the estrogen is so high in her body.
So like potentially, not all, we can say that some of the women that say that maybe, at a point like they were just not turned on by their relationship and they needed to spice it up was really they needed to tighten up their diet or whatever they were, consuming, whether it be makeup, even, like things that they were putting in their body because that was potentially prohibiting
Yeah,
their sex drive.
yeah. I mean, I've even had like, couples consultations where like they got very honest, and the times that she was saying no is because her period was still on, but she was afraid to tell him, like, because she just told him last week it was on, and
Oh,
it's still on the next week.
that's it.
You see what I'm saying? And so, like, for her, it's like I got to tell him my period is still on. He's not gonna believe that.
Mm.
You understand? So, like, it's a lot of conversation not being had, but a lot of the conversation, a lot of the issues could be solved with eating properly. And I always say this, and this is so important for me because this is what I personally believe. My personal philosophy is that the highest version of you is the healthiest version of you. I believe we come down here as spirits, but before we do, I believe that we select. I'm going to be black. I'm going to be 6'2". I'm going to weigh 225 pounds. I'm going to attract these type of people around me. I'm going to have these type of experience. I've selected these parents. I believe we do all of that before we come down here. And I
Hmm.
also believe that in that experience, all of our abundance is attached to the healthiest version of ourselves. Because when you can't see properly, when you have an unhealthy gut, which is where your intuition comes from. When you have high blood pressure, when you have diabetes, when you're constantly having headaches, when you're sluggish and fatigued, there's no way you can get any sixth sense about anything. And so you don't hear opportunities knocking when they're supposed to.
Yeah.
The man of your life or the woman of your life may be right there, but you can't be intuitive about or conscious about any of that.
Damn, that makes a lot. That's probably a lot of problems that we're having today. We
Yeah.
talk about. I mean, we talk about it all the time that people not being able to pick the right partner.
Yeah.
Well, realistically, you're not your healthiest, highest self to even be able to identify it. Well, that
Yeah.
makes a lot of
And they
sense.
can't see you.
Yeah, they can see me. They can see me,
Not
my
you,
boy.
bro.
I'm bright. So I have a question, right? It's a little bit of a question,
Cool.
right? Whatever that sound effect means.
All right, cool.
Is there a unhealthy benefit to running a red light?
What?
Because like I'm just asking for a friend.
Okay.
Like if she's 10-day or
Okay. Oh,
he might run the red light.
this dude.
Like,
Unhealthy. Um.
or am I safe? Or
Well,
is
what?
he safe?
What it
My
always
friend.
running the red light. Well, it always depends on the man too, right?
Mhm.
Because like a woman's menstruation, part of it is cleansing the womb. So it's a time for cleansing. It's a time for letting go, right? So a penetration is not part of a cleansing, especially if you have an unhealthy diet. You see what I'm saying? Like I think all of those factors has to be kind of considered or what have you. But if your woman has a long period like that, you and her need to get healthy together. Like that's how I always tell people because it is not normal to have a period, in my opinion, more than 3 days.
And it's so funny. I asked this back in high school, in my sex ed class, because I remember they were talking about irregular periods,
Yeah.
right? Irregular menstrual cycles, and I'm like, has this always been a thing? Like were women always having irregular menstrual cycles for hundreds of thousands of years, or that we've,
No,
you know what I'm
not
saying?
at all.
I don't believe it, but
Yeah.
which makes sense because it ties directly with our consumption.
Yep.
Now, here's the thing. I am a advocate and a lover of eating proteins,
Okay.
as in actual meats.
Gotcha.
Pause. Right?
God.
Like, gotta say pause on that. Now, I see a lot of people that they're like even you mentioned that, well, you mentioned 90% plant-based, right?
97.
97,
Yeah.
still too much, right? For
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Now, my question is, um, are there benefits to eating, those type of meats? What are some of the pros and cons that you've come across? Um, because somebody like me, I'm going to eat a steak,
Gotcha.
but I'm hearing a lot of things that I shouldn't, but I also hear things that, you should.
Right.
So is there a balance? Like, what does that 3% really look like?
Okay. So I don't have a 3%. Let me say that I've been plant-based vegan for 12 years. Let me say that. What I will tell you is that when you look at the human constitution and you compare it to other animals, our biology is set up for us to eat plants. Okay. What I mean by that is when you look at animals, omnivores and carnivores, they all have fangs, teeth that say that I can. Not really. They also, when they eat their meat, they cannot do their jaw side to side like that, but we can. Like plant eaters can do
Oh, they
that,
can only
so we
go
can
up and
grind.
down?
Yeah, they can go only up and down. The other thing is when you look at meat eaters in the animal kingdom, when you look at their digestive tract, it's like 7 to 10 feet. When you look at ours, it's like 30 to 35 feet. And all herbivores or plant eaters have longer digestive times because you want to get more of the.
Got it.
So biologically, we're not set up to eat like that. The other thing I'll tell you is that when you look in the animal kingdom and you think about the strongest animals out there, name a few, like two.
Gorilla,
Gorilla, definitely.
a lion,
Rhino, no. Rhino.
a rhino. He just added up my own. His
No,
own.
I'm just saying.
Rhinos are strong too.
Yeah.
Damn, rhinos are really strong.
Rhino, ox, gorilla,
Bear.
Elephant. Those are the strongest animals. None of them eat meat.
Yeah, but like, come on, bro. Who's scared of an elephant?
Well, you're not scared of an elephant because they're not going to eat you.
They might have a lot of estrogen.
But the point of
I'm scared of a rhino.
But the point of what I'm trying to make is that we have this myth or idea that you need to eat meat to gain muscle. That's the only thing I'm trying to show. I mean, just kind of in there.
I'm not gonna lie. There's a lot of there's a lot of people there's a lot of Indian guys in one of my gyms that I go to.
Yeah.
And they're all vegetarian, and they were saying there's a lot of I guess complications in gaining.
Yeah.
But the good thing that they have is that they're able to sustain it once they have it, I guess.
Yeah. It's a science to it. I won't, I'll tell you that.
Because I'm not gonna lie, for a vegetarian, your weight is up, bro.
Yeah.
Or vegan.
I'm vegan, alkaline, etc. Yeah, I'm 225. I'm 6'2". I can squat 350. I can bench 300. I mean, unless I'm going to war, I don't need any more than that.
Yeah.
And so that's how I look at it.
For real, no, that's
so my idea is can you eat meat and build muscle? Yeah, of course. That's proven. But I'm just saying you don't have to eat meat. You still can.
You
gain
can
muscle.
still have it. Yeah. You mentioned before how our body, depending on what we consume, some of our organs don't work or they don't function properly anymore. So this has been my question since I was a kid. So I'm just giving you this question. What happened to our appendix?
Okay.
Was that part of our consumption that has really stopped really being, a use for our body?
Yeah.
I mean, because to my knowledge, and I could be wrong, but correct me, our appendix is really a pointless organ that we have.
I don't believe that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I was taught in grade school.
For sure.
Because it doesn't do what we need it to do. It doesn't function. And a lot of people get inflamed appendixes, right? And they have to get them removed.
Right.
But my thing is this a direct correlation to what maybe our processed foods that we've been eating, so our body abandoned it?
Yeah. So especially in the Black and brown community, when you see how affected we are by colorectal cancer, for instance.
Which is?
So the colon is where
colon cancer.
Is where the appendix comes off of. It's an appendage off of the colon. Okay.
Okay.
Now, what's important is that the colon is also where you have all of your good bacteria too, so your microbiome. Mm-hmm. Okay, that appendix, in my opinion, and a lot of other people's opinion in holistic medicine, is that it's also there to kind of put a secretion on some of the waste that is there to protect you as well. Okay. Now it's really important to understand. I'll tell you what I learned in my traditional pathway to health versus what I know now. I get in a lot of arguments with traditional doctors because what will happen is they have a way of thinking that is linear. It's only one direction. So I'll give you an I did a post. And one of the things I said under the post is, I'm like, Black people are severely dehydrated. We just refuse to drink water. And we need more water than our counterparts. And so this could be one of the causes of high blood pressure, where a doctor came on there and said, no, that will actually cause low blood pressure. And then I had to explain to them, no, chronic dehydration over a course of time will cause the pituitary to excrete vasopressin, which will actually cause constriction and actually increase the blood pressure. Now, I'm giving you that example because modern medicine doesn't have a complete understanding of how the body really works.
Got it.
Drugs work by manipulating biochemistry. Food and herbs work by correcting biochemistry because it is biochemistry. And so when you look at an appendix, the reason why so many of them are inflamed is because so many people's guts are inflamed. We're not eating real food. We're eating inflammatory foods, which is why so many people not only have inflamed, appendixes, but they also have inflamed bodies. Everywhere is inflamed, and all disease, to be honest with you, starts with inflammation. And the inflammation starts with an irritation, then inflammation, and then inflammation causes tissue destruction, and tissue destruction leads to organ dysfunction, and this organ dysfunction leads to dis-ease in the body.
Wow, that's dope as fuck. Because I believe a whole bunch of that. Right? And I'm learning too at the same time. So just understand, I'm just digesting.
Yeah.
Something that you touched on, and I would love for you to expound if possible. Right? Is there really a, because this is the first time that I've heard it in my life, was during COVID.
Gotcha.
Well, we had black people and white people saying that COVID affected one party more than the other.
Okay.
And so my question is there really, on a health standpoint, is there really a difference in how we need to treat our bodies based on whichever, ethnicity you were born in?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'll give you one perfect example. And it's a very novel example, but let's take, for instance, vitamin D. Most people, especially during COVID, didn't understand how the role of vitamin D in our immune system. But what we saw through the studies was that the people who had severe complications as a result of COVID, the vast majority of them had vitamin D deficiency. And that makes sense because vitamin D is like the joystick to the immune system. So if you have a foreign invader like a virus come into the body, the vitamin D says, immune system, go there, do this. Okay, now you go over there and do this. Without the joystick, they're there, but it doesn't know it's there.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Around.
So, for instance, with people of color, this melanin in our skin is actually developed as a form of reflecting some of the sunlight because the vast majority of us over hundreds of thousands of years was at the equator in Africa and at the equators in other parts of the world. So that's why we developed the skin tone that we have as a form of protection. Now we're in the northern hemisphere. Okay? Anything above Atlanta, you're not getting enough sunlight. Okay? Anything above that longitude, latitude. Okay? So with that being said, it's important for us to know as people of color, we have to get more sunlight than our white counterparts. So that's just one example how we're different. But even when you look at high blood pressure and you see how doctors treat African American patients versus how they treat Caucasian patients, a lot of the drugs are going to be different. A lot of times they're going to use amlodipine or Norvasc with a African American patient, and they would tend to use more so like a beta blocker with Caucasian patients.
Why is that?
Well,
Like, is it? Do you think it's beneficial?
I think it's twofold. I think there's a lack of complete understanding, one, and then I think also B, we are just more unhealthier in our health practices as well. We tend to eat the unhealthiest foods because they put them in our neighborhoods. Like, you're not going to see a Chick-fil-A in the best neighborhoods in New Jersey or New York. You're just never going to see it.
Or Chicken Shack?
You see what I'm saying? You're never going to see that. And people usually eat in proximity. You're not going to see a Whole Foods in Patterson, New Jersey, like certain parts, right? So what I'm saying, because of that, the way that we're creating high blood pressure versus how they're creating high blood pressure is very different. Like,
There's could be like stress related.
Yeah, it could be
versus ours
stress related. It could be the fact that it could be congenital. I mean, it could be a lot of different things, but the way we're creating high blood pressure versus the way they do is sometimes different.
My question that I think I have and a lot of other people have, because like I said, I need to have a piece of steak. That's what I need.
Okay.
We all want to have a substitute Because deep down inside, we know what we consuming ain't the best.
Right.
We know it's not the best option for us, but we love it.
Right.
But like for example, for men that love to drink beer, but they want to reduce the estrogen intake that they're having,
Right.
what can they trade beer for? What can I trade a steak for? What can a woman trade makeup for? Because that's also producing too much estrogen too.
Yeah.
And then I also have another question too.
All right, got you.
How the hell do I fix my shower tap water from putting all of that into my pores?
Gotcha. So, substitute. So, I'll tell you, I used to like steak too, filet mignon. I remember when I graduated pharmacy school, I said, my prize to myself is every Friday I'm going to get filet mignon. Like, I used to do that.
That's my guy right there.
But then one of the things I noticed when I went plant-based, like my girl finally told me, she was like, she actually didn't like that I lost the weight. She liked me bigger.
Yeah.
She was like, yo, the bedroom is different, so we'll keep it. And that was the first time I was like, wait, what was the problem in the bedroom? And eating those type of things, like I said, decreases blood flow. So for me, my steak is now mushroom steak. So like using portobello steak.
Oh,
You know what I'm saying? So that's my steak.
is there
now.
another one? Because I can't do portobello.
Trust me, you gotta try it before you throw it out the window, bro. Just try it. Call me. I'll give you another substitute. All
I
right.
got
So
you.
that's your steak substitute. Beer, I really don't have a
Substitute. Cut it out.
Some stuff like you just gotta remember that shit. Like
Yeah.
it ain't even like a substitute for. So like I'll be honest with you, like, because it's not only the alcohol itself, but it's also like they use hops, and hops is a herb, right? And that herb produces that estrogen. But the real issue is that it's not just the beer that's the issue; it's all of this other estrogen that we've been talking about that's compiling the issue as well.
Yeah.
And so I always tell people, it's like, then you got soy all over the place, and you're using plastics all over the place. So it's really the compilation of those things. But I don't necessarily have a substitute for beer. I'll be honest with you. I stopped drinking like 7 years ago. And when I did stop drinking, like when I would be out and be social, I was like trying to figure out what I was going to put in my hand. And that's why I felt like uncomfortable. But when I got in that moment, you know what I said to myself? Like, you need to get comfortable. And then if you want to have a drink, then you can have a drink. But don't make having a drink make you comfortable. And I just never went back to it because of that. Because I was like, damn, like it's a vice. Like I got to do this around other people, and people, people make you feel uncomfortable. And I was like, I'm going to get so comfortable. And when I feel so comfortable, then you want to have a drink, you can have a drink. But I just never went back. Okay, so that's that.
That's dope.
Chicken. All right, because people love chicken. But even chicken,
Oh, bro, don't do this to me.
I gotta say it though. Most people don't know, like in the industry, most people know that they put hormones in chicken. You know that, right?
Mhm.
Okay, it's not the hormone. It's not testosterone.
Yeah, it's not testosterone.
No. So it's,
What kind of hormone is it?
well, you can imagine. It's trying to
Estrogen?
make you grow. Okay, when women take
steroids.
when women take birth control pills, does it make them thicker?
I thought that was a myth.
No, it's
I
not.
thought it was me.
No, no, it's not. Big up yourself, but no. But they inject chicken with water, but that water has salt in it and it has phthalates. The salt is there to make the water retain, because wherever salt goes, water's gonna stay there.
Mm.
Okay, the water's just there to add weight. When you weigh the chicken, it weighs more, so they get to charge you more. The phthalates are there to preserve the chicken. Okay, and those phthalates are fake estrogens that run up the estrogen in your body. So for me, my chicken is like oyster mushrooms.
Again with the mushrooms, bro.
I'm sorry,
You're a
bro.
mushroom guy.
Yeah. So those are like, and then I substitute out other healthy, like fences. I don't eat a lot of rice, and I know, all my Puerto Rican and Dominican brothers are like,
Yeah.
now you lost
You
me.
should have had the rice I had 2 days ago.
But like I use quinoa instead.
Quinoa's not bad. I could do quinoa.
Yeah. So a lot of substitutes that you can have because I think it's important to make those substitutes because like I'm not just substituting and getting a better product, I'm getting a healthier product too. And I'm getting a lot of protein, I'm getting a lot of the things I actually need. Whereas the rice doesn't have anything in it. That's why it's white.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, question on that too. So, let's say if I do substitute to like a portobello steak,
Yeah.
how impactful is the seasoning to make it taste the way I want it to taste? Like, are our seasonings really like, a like a concoction of all this other like chemicals that we're talking about as well?
Oh, you season with plants, bro.
You can season with plants.
I mean, basil, oregano,
Oh,
thyme. Those are what real seasonings are. So when you
wait,
start to
but
think,
that's it. Wait, what others? I know thyme, basil, oregano.
yeah,
What other
you got
seasonings?
parsley, cilantro. I mean, you can use a little bit of onion powder, which is really good.
Okay,
I
onion
mean, it's
powder.
just so many. Here's the
Wow,
thing:
that's
you don't like the steak because it's steak. You like the steak because of the season.
who
Trust me. Eat
who
eat your steak
with
with
nose.
no seasonings.
I'm
I would love it.
yo. Let me tell
I
you.
would love it. I would love for you to eat your steak with no seasonings, which are plants, which is saying that you like the plants, not the meat.
Look. I want you to get a close up on this. See that thing? I like my steak.
You like your steak because of plants, bro.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't want to have this conversation on camera because it might come off psychotic. But we'll talk. I like my steak. Now, all right. Now, what about other intakes such as tap water that we're intaking, even if we're not drinking?
Yeah.
You know,
So you can get a filter on the water coming into your home. So not the filter that's on the sink, which you can get, but you can literally filter the water that's coming in, all the water that's coming into the house. That's what I have at my house. So I have a filter not only for the sinks, but I got a filter for the water, the main line coming into the house. So that's a really great thing to do because now you're preventing a lot from happening. Now the water that you're bathing in is fine. You see what I'm saying? So that's one way to do it. I would also say another important thing is to buy as much as possible your drinking water not in plastic, get it in glass bottles.
I used to do that with Voss.
Yeah, not so good because it's purified water, not
Yeah,
natural spring water.
and I don't like Voss.
Yeah, for sure. That's why, because it's essentially toilet water in a glass bottle.
Ugh.
It's purified.
What about Fiji? I like Fiji
Yeah,
water.
Fiji is good. It's like from
Have it at the site.
Aquaphor.
But it's in a
Plastic bottle.
It is. I mean, like, I don't expect everybody to be like perfect in their doing.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like, I think perfect is unachievable, but what is doing your best.
Gotcha.
So if you can get water in a glass bottle, I would say like the Aquapana, the Mountain Valley spring water. Those are in glass bottles. Get that water.
Okay, now what about last one that we had on the list? And I don't know if you know because you're kind of a guy.
Come on, man.
Nah, you're a guy for sure.
Yeah.
But when it comes to makeup, right? So you did touch on how some of the makeup increases estrogen, correct?
Yeah.
And is there another alternative? Some women just don't want to be all natural
Yeah.
for whatever
Yeah,
reason.
there's nothing wrong with that.
So is there an alternative that you know about that you can share for ladies who are looking to still, kind of have the best of both worlds?
Yeah. Well, we'll say I need to do better with that in terms of brands because I know that there are definitely some black brands out there that have makeup that are made from natural ingredients.
Mm.
But that's what I would encourage. Find companies out there that have natural ingredients, no phthalates. Okay, phthalates is spelled with a PTH. No parabens. So when you're looking at the ingredients, make sure they don't have those too, because on average, women over the course of a year, and I would say even more so now because women wear like way more makeup now. Uh, they consume that makeup adds about 10 pounds of toxins to their body. And your face absorbs everything. Like this is one of the most absorbable places on your body.
Makeup adds about 10 pounds of toxins
over the
in your
course
body.
over the course of a year.
Holy hell.
Yeah.
And they be talking about they got this WAP. It's really toxic. I'm, like, I'm just,
Well, that's
because
part.
it's got to come out somehow.
That's part of like why infertility is so high right now.
Mm,
Again, like a lot of people aren't having these conversations, but because when somebody is trying to have a baby and they can't, and they tried the medical route and it didn't work, and now it's me, I get to have those conversations, and so many people are having so many issues around this. They can't point to why. The doctors can't explain to them why, but when you start to see, think about the amount of toxins people are adding through their food, they're adding through their makeup, the air, the water that's coming into the house, the flame retardants that's in, furniture. You start to compound all these things. What people don't realize is that they test these chemicals, but they test them over a course of 6 weeks. They don't test them over the course of years, which is what's happening because you're adding them to your body every day.
yeah.
And they don't test, they test them individually. They don't test all of them together. All of these compounds coming in from everywhere. And they don't test the bioaccumulation of these toxins as they're accumulating in your body. So I have a 14-day and a 28-day detox, and that's the absolute best way to, because herbs were made for the healing of the body. I know you've heard that before, right? And they're made for healing, okay? To heal the body once it's unhealed, okay? And the reason why it works that way is because, as I told you before, the body is designed to heal itself. But what happens is it becomes so toxic, it can't do the work. So that's why herbs are made to do that. So that's one of the primary ways you can do it. But the other way is to make sure that you have a very healthy diet and lifestyle, okay? I'm using both of them because you can't just eat healthy and then think unhealthy. You see what I'm saying? And not be active. So you have to have a healthy diet and a healthy lifestyle. And that's going to help you cleanse the body. But I'll tell you, like what I've seen with a lot of people who are even like vegan or plant based, they get a lot of health by going plant based. And then once they start detoxing and getting these toxins out of the body, because we're talking about not only the things I talked about, we're talking about heavy metals,
Yeah.
cadmium, lead, mercury. And a lot of people have those fillings in their mouth. That mercury is coming out into the body. You understand? And it does not come out with just food.
I got a whole bond.
You got to get it out. And so, like, that's why I tell people is like, like these things have accumulative effects, but herbs are literally designed. Just start looking up herbs
Wait,
and
wait.
you'll see they pull toxins and heavy metals out of the body.
So for those that are, let's just say, for those who have fillings or
Yeah.
bonds, like I have a bond on my tooth right
Yeah.
now. Is there an alternative for that
Yes, you
without
need,
pulling tooth out?
no, you need to go to a holistic dentist,
Okay.
okay? And you need to have them substitute out that mercury filling for a composite resin, which is more of a natural resin that they put in there. It's going to be white, just like your tooth. But you need to have a holistic dentist do it because they do a certain technique that prevents you, A, from swallowing any of the mercury that comes out, but also while they're drilling, a lot of those fumes while they're drilling are coming out into the body too. And so they have a technique to make sure none of that happens.
Bro, that you just saved my life.
Yeah, for sure.
You
And a
just
lot
saved my
of
life.
mercury leads to a lot of headaches. It leads to a lot of gut issues. It leads to a lot of depression, anxiety. And people could be going through a lot of this, and your doctor will never test you for heavy metals.
Mhm.
And you will never know. And you will be on Prozac or Celexa or something like that trying to cure your depression or your anxiety. You'll never be able to resolve it because the issue is the mercury. So it's always you have to go to the cause to get the cure.
So and I think a lot of people, we could touch on this briefly too. A lot of people think because they're um prospectively fit, like or
Cosmetically fit.
cosmetically fit, exactly. Like you look fit, you think you're really healthy.
Hmm.
And I remember like back when I was doing modeling, I used to get meal preps all the time, and I used to always get salmon, and by I would say 3 or 4 weeks of consistently having salmon because it
Yeah.
became like a thing that I needed.
Yeah.
I was having heartburn, chest pains,
I know why.
and it was like, was it the mercury? No.
It could be the mercury because most fish does have mercury in it,
Hmm.
but it's also going to kill me about this. But salmon also is filled with parasites. I want
Oh,
everybody to do this. You do this quick Google search: bears with parasites, and then put the word salmon. Okay, and you will see bears. I learned this when I went to Seattle, and then I went up to Vancouver, and you can see the bears like walking to collect to get the salmon out of the river,
hmm,
and this bear is walking, and you can see this like white string hanging out of the bear. So I asked the guy, "What is that?"
wow, I see it.
And
Yep.
he was like, "Oh, that's a tapeworm." I was like,
Oh
"Where did
my
they get
God.
this tapeworm from?" He was like, "Oh, they get it from the salmon." Well, where did the salmon get it from? Well, what happens is the salmon actually lay their eggs into the river, and then this parasite comes and infuses itself into the egg, and then the bear eats the eggs and eats the salmon, and that's how they end up with that parasite that is literally hanging out of their butt. That could be up to 35 feet.
That's wild. You know what? I actually watched a video where there's parasites in bees, a
Yeah,
wasp, and they were pulling it out the head, and
yeah,
it was longer than their body, or
yeah,
like the same size.
yeah. And controlling the bee,
Yep, and controlling the bee, and
and
they,
it does that with us too. Like with our cravings.
yeah,
Like the reason why we have that sweet tooth at night,
like Coca-Cola.
yes, is because the freaks come out at night. The parasites wake up at night. They're hungry. They they incentivize you. They tell you you want something sweet.
Yeah, I need to do your cleanse.
Mm.
So before we actually sign out, let's actually touch upon the fruit box
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because for those that do know, I already said this before. I did get my first fruit box about a week ago or so,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and it was really dope. I think just the whole experience of it, of having a bunch of fruit that you really don't know, right? Like they're all new tasting. It's almost like Forrest Gump said, like life's like a box of chocolates,
Yeah,
except for it's a box of fruits,
yeah.
right? And it's like a whole bunch of different fruits that I'm googling. I'm actually YouTubing. I'm like, how do I cut this one?
Right.
I don't even know. So tell them about the fruit. Where they can get it.
Yeah,
What's your favorite fruit?
yeah,
And
yeah.
and I learned that mine was dragon fruit.
Good stuff. So, a few years ago, my idea once I moved back to the States was I cannot eat this food. That's what I learned because as soon as I started eating American food again, and I'm talking about plant-based American food, I felt different. And so at that point, I said, I got to own a farm one day. And so the idea was I love fruit. 60% of what I eat is fruit. Okay. So, and I don't eat regular fruit like you would go into the store to get. So I want
Strawberry.
tropical fruit. You know what I'm saying? Like soursop, different varieties of mango, sapodilla, um, black sapote, lychee, longan, and the list goes on and on. June plum. All of these fruits you'll probably find in the Caribbean or some tropical region. So, bought a farm in Miami. Started a company called iHeart Fruit Box, and now we ship all of those fruits all around the continental U.S. and including Alaska and also Canada. You literally can order a fruit box today and get it in Canada in like 2 or 3 days. So
Yeah.
it's just a way to provide food security to our community, so they can get real fruit that is seeded. Okay, because how many fruits out there you see that don't have seeds anymore?
Too many.
And the thing is, the very definition of a fruit is the presence of a seed. So if it doesn't have the seed, then what is it? Okay.
Made.
Yep. And then seasonal, only get seasonal. So whatever's in season right now, that's what you get.
Mm.
Because otherwise you have to hybridize it. Like a tomato, like they essentially took the DNA of a tomato and spliced it with the Arctic flounder, which is a fish that can live in sub-zero temperatures and water. And that's how you can now grow tomato in the winter. Okay. So getting original food is very important to the equation. So yeah, that's what we do at iHeart Fruit
You gave me
Box.
a tomato in my fruit box.
No, that was a tree tomato, which is different.
Oh, I was.
And there are natural tomatoes. I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah,
saying when you go and buy a conventional one,
yeah, yeah.
and
No, I definitely knew it was a natural tomato because I was
yeah,
like, is this a tomato or not?
yeah, yeah.
And I bit it. I was like, oh, this is a tomato. But I ate it because I trust you.
Yeah, yeah,
You
for sure,
know.
man. Like that's what it's about. Man, I want to build something not only for me and my security, but for the community too, bro.
Listen, man, and everybody knows I've been going crazy that a man is defined by being a community asset. So
Yeah,
I definitely want to say I identify you as that. I appreciate you. You have been probably one of the most informative pieces that I think I have sat next to. So I am
appreciate that,
definitely
brother.
appreciative for your presence and your knowledge and your wisdom. And I wish you nothing but the best. Hey, listen, guys, you can go ahead and subscribe to us and get a date box to try to help your relationship out. Keep liking, supporting, and subscribing. Go ahead and get an iHeart Fruit Box. That's at iHeart Fruit Box. Listen, he's gonna be able to do the closeout, but I'm just co-signing it because I got my own. But before we sign off, go ahead and tell them where they can find you at,
Yeah,
and tell them anything you got going on.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, to everybody, I just want to say, like, take care of your health, man. You are your greatest asset, and the highest version of you is the healthiest version of you. And so, start investing in your health the same way you invest in homes, cars, Gucci belts, etc. You deserve that care too, the same way you give to your car. I'd love to be your guide on that journey. My name is Dr. Bobby Price. You can find me on Instagram as Dr. Holistic, DOCTOR, Holistic, and on YouTube as Dr. Bobby Price. And my website is drbobbyprice.com. And I'll see you there. Yeah, so my book is Vegucation Over Medication is not only on Amazon with over 1,400 five-star reviews, but also on my website where you can get a signed copy.
All right, guys. We'll see you next time here at 8 at the Table.